All right, now we are live, JP. I'm sorry. Are we good on school and or Instagram?
Just go ahead. I'm looking right now. Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody to Scaling Lean's Daily Live, the Daily RevUp. You have Jonathan Plaransky and Nina Brennan here, co-founders of Scaling Lean, and every day we just share little tidbits of what's working in the online space, what we're currently doing, and the changes that we've seen over time, so you cannot make mistakes as you are building your online business and bringing your expertise to the market. We have a really cool case study today that we want to talk about with one of our cohort members. And JP, I'm sure that we could talk about a little bit of what we just discussed inside of our daily DMs call, which is really about standards and discipline and setting goals in order to achieve what you want to achieve. A little bit about the be do have model and getting a little bit into the mindset side of things in terms of growing a business. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to you. We can take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Monday, everyone. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, we love to interact. Yeah, absolute fire morning so far, Nina. September, man, it's always the best month for us at Scaling Lean, right? We always seem to have like awesome results, and I don't know what it is about September, man, but like
A lot of
it,
movement too, going down to Scottsdale and having our live event. There's just a lot of good energy, man.
yeah, we're about to kick off a sprint here where we're hosting a 4 weeks to profit cohort next week for 4 days. On the back end of the month, we're hosting a 3-day live event for clients and a 1-day live event for folks that are local to Phoenix here. So plug in, let us know how we can support. We want to help you grow through this season of, of buying, right? Like this is the biggest buying months of the year in 2025. But yeah, we kicked off the day as every single day, like we do with the daily DM, and it's a 30-minute compressed call that we do inside of our paid client school community. And man, we had about 6 or 8 people there. It was pretty intimate. We were just talking about goal settings, reviewing some places where people are having shortcomings. I was speaking about just my past and the upper limits, and then Nina chimed in with the be do have model. So that being said, yeah, Nina, let's hop into probably a little bit of what we spoke about there and give a little nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, by all means, shout Alan out if you'd like, or we can go deeper with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the mindset, JP, of approaching from like, I guess what we talked about is like the feminine approach to like the do, and the push and the black and white thinking versus more of like the feminine. And when we talk about masculine and feminine here at Scaling Lean, we're not talking about male and female dynamic. Everybody fosters energy in both the masculine and the feminine, and both ebb and flow, no matter what kind of being you are. You flow between this masculine and feminine of like the do and then the be. And then, of course, we both experience the have. So I want to talk a little bit about the mindset of just like how you approach the world, especially when you were in your semi-professional biking days and as a semi-professional athlete, as corporate worker, as someone doing side hustles, and then even transitioning into a business owner. And then I'll talk a little bit about my journey of like identity shifting of like going from where I was into a whole complete different identity into now this business owner and like detaching from identity in order to achieve what we want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it sounds a little woo woo, but I want to get both perspectives really a light shown onto them. And then we could just talk a little bit about how Alan was able to achieve his very awesome results. Stay tuned, guys, because this is a really great case study that you want to hear about. So JP, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So my observation over the years, just starting off with the masculine and feminine side, I think this will transcend right into the goal setting. What I've observed is guys are more like yes or no, like black or white with goals and just overall in life, where women are more like flowing and kind of like shades of gray and different colors inside of the black and the white, right? Like just more kind of vast. And it's completely awesome to have those two different sides of every person, right? And then to be in awareness of that, and then you can kind of meet someone where they are and understand their perspective a bit more, is kind of like the perspective I've been viewing the world in, right? Because if we can understand the person's thoughts and how they're communicating, then we're going to obviously be able to help them or potentially not invite them into what we're doing, right? So we were really just breaking down how, throughout my personal entire life, I've always been able to set goals really high and then go after them and just freaking hunt, right? And just every day, whether it was like BMX riding and just putting in the reps every single day and building dirt jumps out in the woods and like just eating shit, literally just falling on my face and then just getting up and then jumping farther and bigger and growing and like all that type of stuff. And I was always able to really just like push my way towards all of my goals. But what I found over my life and through my 20s and now 30s is that's really not very effective, because what I saw and witnessed was like my goals went like this, right? So I'd have these big peaks and then I'd have these low lows, whether that was with weight, whether that was with professional goals, whether that was with personal goals. It just really wasn't a very consistent way to attack life. And what I found happening after deeply researching this for years, and the book by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, was a perfect way for me to like really identify and put this into frame. Was I would go into this goal and I would sprint for 90 days, 6 months, whatever that is, and I would hit that new level of power or wealth or whatever that is, and then I would basically upper limit, right? And then I would hit that upper limit and then I'd like burn everything to the ground, and I would either go sometimes even lower than I was before I even started the goal, right? And then I started like really thinking about this and how it was manifesting in my life, whether that was like drinking or just eating differently or just completely stopping activities for no like apparent reason at all. And then what I really found was that I didn't really have awareness of what was happening and how the human operates. And that's in a comfort zone, right? So whether that's hitting your first 10K online and you're normally in 2K of debt, or being 30 grand in debt and then hitting your first 20K month, whatever that guide rail that you've created, whether maybe it's from your childhood or your adult, everyone has these upper limits. And as we become aware of them, we can push through the pain and be in awareness of how to grow past that, transcend into that next person, and then keep growing and growing and growing, more like a tree rather than just being stuck in this track of growth, right? So we were just going deeper in that, and we fielded some Q&As, and people really related with it, right, Nina? And what do you have to say about any of that? I know you definitely have been an athlete and have been through massive growth seasons in business, hitting like 80K and massive success. So like what are some of the things that maybe showed up in your journey?
Yeah, definitely those upper limits, what you're talking about, are very crucial to be aware of. And like when we're walking through life in this unconscious state, like many people do, including myself for a very long time, you don't realize like the ebbs and the flows and the cyclical behaviors that we go through. So I want to start off by bringing up the quote by one of our mentors, Sam Ovens: "You're not the highest version of self that you can imagine. You're the lowest version of self that you can accept." And that's where upper limits and lower limits really come into play, is because when we hit this upper limit of like what you were saying of like, okay, like your peak fitness, I don't know if you said it here or the last call, but like you had your 6-pack, you were really optimizing for VO2, you were doing the best with like your cycling, and then you were just kind of like get comfortable and then just like kind of teeter off. It's very similar for myself. Like when I first started business, of like I would go through these ebbs and flows of my apartment was super clean, and like I watched exactly what I was eating, and I was going to the gym all the time, like 4 or 5 times a week, and then I would just like drop off from these like habits that I was forming as I was reaching this quote unquote success of this like first level of human. And you kind of see where it's like that's where your peak is, and then you let yourself go like down to like the lowest version of self, that it's like, okay, like I'm accepting this behavior because it's not as bad as it could be. And it's like that's where you sit in this like teeter, unless you are conscious about like how you're going about your daily habits, your routine, your standards, etc. But a lot of this conversation goes with the idea of identity, and I know we tapped a little bit into the be do have model in our last call, but I want to bring it up here. So this is where like the feminine energy really comes into play. Of so many people approach it in like the do mentality. If you just do, eventually you're going to get. And that's like what we're trained for and conditioned for in school. Is like, get good grades, you'll get into college. Get into college, you'll get a good job. So it's like do for the next step. And the next step is like primed for you as you're like going through the motions, because it's just like what's expected. And like anyone could really get into college, and anyone could really get a job if you go to college, etc. It's not really like, and a lot of people aren't getting into the colleges that they want to go to, or they're not getting the job that they want to go to or put on the career track. They're just going through the motions of everything that we're talking about. But this first be, do, have idea came into my life when there were a couple of peak troughs, I guess you could say, in my life that I went through that completely shattered the idea of like identity, right? And like I feel like anyone can relate, especially you as an athlete, JP, of like I played soccer for my entire life, and in high school I was on like the travel teams where we're going all over the country and doing showcases, and I was like primed to do D1. And then my senior year I broke my knee, and I was like, I can't play soccer, like what am I going to do? And like I was a good student, but I remember one of my teachers asking me, is like, do you want to be a soccer player that goes to school, or do you want to go to school and just play soccer? Like which direction do you want to go? And I actually had to sit and think about like the identity side of things, right? But when I broke my knee, there was no choice. Like I was going to school and I was going to be a student, and I wasn't going to play soccer until I did. Like I had to obviously heal first. But that first year in school, I was completely lost because I completely lost my identity and I didn't know how to act. So I reacted, and I was doing behaviors like drinking and smoking and doing all things in like an unconscious state to like feel that, like feel the pain or move through the pain. I wasn't feeling anything, right? And a very similar thing happened after school. So like when I went to college, I walked onto a team and like I played soccer. I had my schedule laid out for me. I knew exactly where I had to be, what I had to do. I had classes, I had training, I had lifting, I had work, I had internships, etc. And then after school, what happened was all this routine and structure and schedule that we had in place, I then had to learn how to be a human without someone telling me where, what, and how to behave. And like I completely like lost all sense of self. And I fell into like a very bad depression. And it was like I was allowing myself to be in this very low standard of like mindset and self until I learned about like the quantum physics side of things and like entering meta and being in space and time outside of the identity and being that you are, which is very woo-woo. And I know that. But I studied a lot about Joe Dispenza of like separating and being no thing, no one in no time where you are. And like you really get to see yourself in a space and time different than like who you were told you're being, who you think you are. And you could start having these ideas outside of this, the current self. And when you see and envision and start being in this energy, you start doing and acting in this energy. And that's really what gets you out of the state that you're in to see bigger and dream bigger and do better for yourself and just increase your standards all around. I know that was a long story, but that's really how we got to where we are today. And that happened in every single cycle, from stepping into the identity of a business owner of my first business, and then stepping into the identity of my second business and really scaling the business and hitting our first 7 figures online.
Beautiful, Nina. Yeah, that's a great story to connect with the purpose there. And what I want to put on top of that is I come from like a different perspective of be, do, have, and both ways are great. Like it's just like the chicken before the egg, right? I'm more on like the Hermosi vibe of like action trumps everything, right? And it is very important to define the be. And I totally relate with that as well. I think early on, it's more important just to act, right? Then as you become more clear on what's working, then the being is even more important, because then you have to define what you truly want, right? And then also the character that you want. So in no means are we against each other. It's just like a little bit of a different perspective. But I believe most people look at goals completely wrong. And I say that because I did. I would set these giant rocks, and then I would work towards them. And then if I either achieved the goal or didn't achieve the goal, I would like sometimes find resentment in myself, and blame, shame, and guilt, and all that stuff would come up. And then that's when I would go back to the bottom, where what I've learned and adapted as I went is like it just kind of is. And no matter what your big goal is for that 90-day sprint, 6-month or 12-month goal, it's important that no matter where you end up, you still win, because you collect feedback on the thing that you wanted to do, right? And then when you have feedback, as long as you take action, then you're going to be able to keep going and going to that next level, right? And perfect example to bring into the fold is Alan, right? I met Alan about, back in June at one of the Brand Shark Summits, which was a content shoot hosted by Professor Danny on IG. And we had a couple podcast studios set up there, and Danny had a bunch of editors and film guys there. And what he did was, it was an awesome day. Like, he allowed us to set up and shoot our content. And then he actually allowed us to present in front of the room and everything. It was just a small, tight knit group. And I had the pleasure to speak with Alan, and he had been through a struggle, man. Like, the guy has so much knowledge in the relationship space for helping guys communicate with their exes and or overcome the relationships to become the man that they should be. And his message is amazing, just helping people, men in particular, just become more alpha and understand how to communicate better. And in that, what we found was that Alan, he needed a little bit more guidance and or just awareness around simplifying his message and getting clearer on his offer so he could speak more directly to his folks. And then what's so awesome is Alan decided to join our 4 Weeks to Profit cohort. And this last couple weeks, what's it been, 3 weeks since we had the last cohort? He just announced today he closed a $90,000 deal, Nina, right? Or something absolutely insane. And then he actually got a couple $500 deals through the door as well. So the reason we bring this up is Alan had these 96 12-month goals, and he's been in the space for 13 years. But what it took for him to find success, from my perspective, is he just got really focused on one thing, and he simplified what he really wanted his business to look like, his character that he wanted to work with, and then his offer, right? And when he had that initial clarity, right, then he was able to go out and find that person in the marketplace, right? And it was just such an awesome, perfect way to start the week. And it wasn't even planned that way, where we were talking about goal setting, and then Alan pops in and displayed his success, which is absolutely amazing. So that was a little bit long-winded, Nina, but what do you have for thoughts there?
Yeah, I definitely want to credit Alan for really just taking action. And he said right on the call this morning, it's the reason that he was able to do what he did and break this highest revenue month he's ever had was solely because he simplified his process. And I think that's really what comes down to focus. I know that we can talk about setting goals, and we were really honing in on this before. You can set as many goals as you want, but unless you're acting as the person that can hit those goals and really do the actions. So it's be the person that can hit the goals, do the actions in order to get to the goals, and then you'll be able to have exactly what you want to have. And Alan's a prime example. It's he's been working really hard, and a lot of people, they just give up when things aren't moving in the direction they want to move. The first 30, 60, 90 days of entrepreneurship, and even the first year or two of building a business. And if you are somebody who's not able to push through these struggles and not be able to follow through because you're not seeing instant results, the entrepreneurship game is not for you. And Alan's a prime example. Is if you keep doing and you keep honing in and you keep putting focus where it needs to be, the outcome is going to be exactly what you imagine it to be. And I'm big into the whole idea of affirmations and visualization of if you can see a goal and you could really feel the goal and make it tangible, internal and external, that's how you're going to hit it. And that's really where Alan has been sitting over the last couple of weeks is what do you want your business to look like? And I know that you and him sat down and broke down exactly what his business is going to look like. And he took that back, and it's okay, what's it going to feel like to work with these type of clients? And then sooner or later, here we are 3 weeks later, boom, he just landed his dream client, which is a C-suite executive with multiple businesses under his belt that's struggling to have the exact outcome of date with intent and be the person that can date with intent. And that's what Alan's going to help him with. So it really just comes down to knowing what you want and going after whichever approach that you approach it from. And I want to just tap on here, JP, with the masculine and feminine approach that you and I speak about. We're saying the same thing, just in different ways. And I want to talk about how the broken masculine and the broken feminine will approach the be do have, because it sounds like we're both approaching it from a healthier mindset of masculine and feminine. Whereas male or female, if you're sitting in a feminine state and a broken feminine, and you're only focusing on this like side of the being. And you'll see a lot of this in the online space of like the manifestation and it'll come into your life, but they're not taking action and they're sitting in this like male and female. This is not just like one or the other, but they're sitting in this feminine energy of just like, I will attract what I want into my life. The answer is yes, but you also have to do. And then there's the masculine side where it's like they're not in the being state, but they're just constantly in the doing state. They burn themselves out and they get frustrated, male and female again, because they're not getting the results they want to do. And they're like, I'm doing everything that I need to do, but I'm not getting what I want to get, not having what I want to have, etc. And it's because they're not ebbing and flowing between the two and letting the energies flow. So you and I are saying the same things, and we're just approaching it from a different perspective of like you're approaching it from masculine, but you're also allowing yourself into the feminine, and vice versa of me being from approaching from the feminine mind and tapping into the masculine. But you can see the synergy of like ebbing and flowing between the two. Whereas like what we don't see a lot of people succeed is if they're so far in one and broken in the other. And you have to heal both sides in order to like do and have. So I just wanted to bring that perspective up as well, because at the end of the day, it is just like a model that works and has been proven time and time again. So
that is absolute fire. I love that brokenness that you just brought in there. And what I feel, for one, I really feel the broken side is just not being open and aware, right?
Exactly.
And
it's unconsciousness.
It's just stuck in one or the other. And one thing that's really supported our growth is just looking at paradigms, right? And that's what Sam really showed us is like, yeah, do your Enneagram and do just have an understanding of your human design as a whole. And then start to question why you feel certain ways about certain things, right? And I'm not going to take it as far as politics because that's a very extreme way to do this, but you could do it as simply as, why do I like chocolate instead of vanilla? And you can literally just start eating a little vanilla and then being like, hey, like this is actually all right. You know what I mean? And then maybe you might start like vanilla better, right? And that's that paradigm and worldview that we've always strived for. Nina and I have just always questioned and been open to what does that other side look like and what can it add into what we're doing, right? Like I wasn't a huge fan of yoga and personal like healing and like taking care of myself personally, meaning more on like the just rest period. Like I was just this guy that was just freaking grinding, like every day, wake up from dusk till dawn, just on the run, just go. But then when I started leaning into things like yoga and breath work and meditation and sauna and, you know, I'm not even going to say cold plunge because I tried that once and it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But like when I started to look into these different types of ways to recover, it really added a lot of perspective and creativity into the way that I do things, right? And it enhanced the masculine. And I'm sure you can totally relate with the way soccer was very structured, and potentially you swung the needle a little too far there for a little bit. And then you had to find more of the flow back in your life, which is more of the feminine, right? So
yeah. And that's when I fell deeply into like the broken masculine, because I was always in my masculine and then I fell way too far into the feminine. And that's when I had to find the balance between the both. I do want to bring up a point here, JP, where it's like, I challenge anyone who really wants to get deep within themselves of like seeing the balance between masculine and feminine is really challenging yourself on looking at like hard cases in terms of like politics and religion and even like, I know this sounds crazy, but looking at like murder trials, like I used to watch the, what is that show with my family? And I was trying to look at like childhood psychology that would make people act the way they did. I obviously didn't agree with like the outcome of what they did, which was like killing someone or whatever. But when you're able to like break down someone's psyche and understand from an unbiased perspective as to like why people act the way they do, why people react the way they do, it just puts you in kind of like this middle ground of like masculine and feminine of like understanding and like knowing things are right and wrong. We're getting a little bit too deep here, but that was something that really helped me in terms of like seeing both sides of perspectives, to really challenge myself to like get into this mindset. So it's really a lot about like understanding human psychology. It helps you get better at marketing and sales. It could go into all that detail, but that alone just like puts you inside of like this middle ground between the masculine and feminine of just like understanding why you think the way you do. But if you just see it as black and white, like you talk about, of like, this is good or this is bad, rather than just this is what is, like, you're going to have strong opinions that might not be correct, or they're just going to make you think and do and even be a certain type of person that's going to keep you in an identity stuck. We're going a little deep here, JP, so reel it back in. But
you're good. I feel like this was a really good one. Drop us some love in the comment box. We're doing these pretty much every day, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let us know some topics you'd like us to riff on, whether that's something with conversations, marketing, sales, funnels, personal development. We're here for it all. Whatever it takes for you to get to the next level. We deal with a lot of folks that are stuck in procrastination or decision fatigue and trying to figure out what info product to launch with their expertise and really trying to get the momentum, or folks that are like Alan that have been in the business for a while and they just really want to start revving things up and get more clear on the ascension path that it takes to get them to 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever that goal is, right? So we've got a pretty broad expertise level for the past 3 years. And again, we're hosting another cohort. Man, the results are stacking from just the one we did, 21 days ago. We had Jane close 4 deals over the weekend after she launched her offer. We got now Alan with that's insane $90,000. Like,
and it has 7 calls on the calendar this week.
Expect that, to be completely honest with you, but it could give you some clarity and some ways to kind of shift your perspective and grow with your offer. Lots of people took away and just have clarity on what they're doing and more focused now. And then if you are local here to Phoenix, we're hosting at the AI Surfer headquarters. We're hosting a live event the 26th of September, 1-day live event on our AI sales system that we've used to really scale things up and get clear on our avatar, clear on our message, clear on our offers. We're going to give you all the prompts, and we're going to host a summit style event where we're going to go over some really amazing things on content, storytelling, offer creation. So tune in, plug in, let us know how we can support you. And that being said, we'll see you on Wednesday, right?
Yes, we'll see you guys then. Bye.